Hello, and welcome to Exposed News Outlet, where we shed light on the topics that matter most. I'm your host, Andrea. Today we're exploring about the history of the word woke and how radicals like Elon and Trump try to redefine this word and what it means to keep their cult followers ignorant and literally asleep. Because if you're not woke, you're asleep. As we navigate the complexities of our world, it's essential to stay informed and engaged. By subscribing to our channel, enabling notifications, and sharing our content, you're supporting our mission to provide thought-provoking insights and inspire positive change. Thank you for being a part of our community. Help support an independent, truth-driven journalist, empower a transgender voice in this fight for democracy and civil rights. In today's world, where misinformation spreads like wildfire and hate-fueled narratives dominate the headlines, independent voices that fight for the truth are more important than ever. I am a transgender journalist on a mission to provide quality, fact-based news that challenges the status quo and brings clarity to the stories that matter. As a member of the LGBTQ+ community, I understand firsthand the need for honest, inclusive, and empowering journalism that defends civil rights, equality, and freedom. But to make this vision a reality, I need your help. As an independent journalist, I'm building a media platform that cuts through the noise and provides real, unbiased coverage, especially on issues that affect marginalized communities, including transgender people. The equipment and software needed to produce high-quality content, ensure professional editing, and run a credible platform are costly. And every day, I work towards making this a sustainable reality. Your donation will help me secure the essential tools required to invest in professional equipment and software to produce clear, engaging, and impactful videos and articles, counter the rising tide of disinformation and anti-transgender propaganda with facts, truth, and personal stories that empower those most affected, keep independent journalism alive by ensuring that voices like mine and others from marginalized communities are heard, respected, and have resources to make a real impact. This is not just about supporting my platform. This is about standing up for the values that shape a healthy democracy: truth, transparency, civil rights, and equality. In a world where mainstream media is often compromised or corrupted, independent journalists have a crucial role in making sure that the facts reach the people who need them most. Together, we can build a future where every voice is heard, where misinformation doesn't have the final say, and where civil rights, especially for transgender people, are not just protected but celebrated. Please donate today and help me continue to fight for truth, freedom, and democracy. Your support is more than just a financial contribution. It's a commitment to a more informed, more inclusive world. Thank you for believing in the power of independent journalism. Now, without further ado, please, let's get to the video. The term woke has undergone significant evolution, and its meaning has expanded over time. Here's a detailed explanation. The origins: 1930s, African American Vernacular English, AAVE. The term originated in the 1930s among African Americans, particularly in the context of the civil rights movement. It was used to describe being aware of the social injustices and racial disparities faced by Black Americans. The phrase "stay woke" was used to encourage people to remain vigilant and informed about the issues affecting their community. In the 1960s and 1970s, Black Power movement and social awareness during the Black Power movement of the 1960s and 1970s, woke gained more widespread usage. It symbolized a heightened sense of social awareness, particularly regarding systemic racism, police brutality, and economic inequality. In 2010 and after, mainstream recognition and expansion. In the 2010s, woke entered mainstream culture, particularly among younger generations and on social media platforms. Its meaning expanded to encompass awareness of various social injustices, including systemic racism and police brutality, LGBTQ plus rights and visibility, feminism and gender equality, environmentalism and climate change, modern connotations such as spirituality, esoteric knowledge, and critical thinking. In recent years, woke has taken on additional connotations, including spiritual awakening and awareness of the interconnectedness of all things, esoteric knowledge and exploration of ancient cultures and mysticism, critical thinking and skepticism of mainstream narratives and institutions, recognition of the matrix, societal, economic inequality and classism, and other marginalized communities, conditioning, and the importance of questioning reality. Watch this clip.
So today I want to talk about a difficult word, an important word that has been at the center of so many political, cultural, and social debates recently. And that word is woke. It comes to us from Old English, meaning to remain awake or to hold a vigil, but also from German, meaning to watch. But we have to focus on African American oral language, spoken language, in order to understand the journey of the word better. And in that context, the word means to be awake and aware and alert, to be conscious of inequalities, particularly of racial inequality and racial discrimination. And over time, that meaning has expanded in the sense that all kinds of discrimination, all kinds of inequalities are included. So whether it's racism or sexism, homophobia, class distinctions, regional and geographical inequalities, and so on. So to be aware of injustices everywhere, what is happening all around the world, here, there, and everywhere. That is the linguistic journey, the etymology of the word. But when we look at its political journey, I think we need to bear in mind that there was a turning point in 2014 when a young African-American young man was killed, was shot by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Michael Brown was killed in that shooting. And afterwards, many activists demanding racial justice and equality have been embracing the term woke even more passionately. There have also been some scholars who have been connecting the pedigree of the term to Martin Luther King's speeches and philosophy and statements, in the sense that he would talk about staying awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change, to respond to the challenge of change. So in that regard, the term itself has been associated with political activism, with progressive activism, and being engaged and responding to inequalities, injustices, discrimination, layers of discrimination, intersectional discrimination everywhere. And the term was, after being especially adopted all across social media and becoming very widespread, very popular across social media, the term itself was also adopted, included in leading English dictionaries. For instance, the Merriam-Webster dictionary in 2017 added the word, defining it as being aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially when it comes to issues related to racial and social justice. Within the same year, the Oxford Dictionary also defined and included the term, describing it as well-informed, being up-to-date, so especially being alert to social, racial, and cultural injustice. To me, as a writer, this is very normal and it's very organic, because language always responds to the changes in a society. Language is not a frozen hole, and it's very natural and organic for language to correspond, to respond to changes. So I find the flow of the word, like a river, very fluid. But what is interesting is, after the term became so popular and widely used, there was an instant backlash. So much so that many people started to use the word woke in a very pejorative, in a very derogatory way. In this context, for them, woke meant someone who is overzealous or pushy or performative, or who has no tolerance whatsoever and who's constantly trying to nitpick everything. So depending on whom you ask, you might come across these completely different, clashing interpretations of the term woke. I also want to add that there have been some scholars and journalists who have been using terms like woke capitalism or woke washing in order to criticize a kind of performative activism that doesn't concentrate on structural change, but only focuses on identity politics related issues. And of course, the term itself should not be weaponized to suppress all kinds of intellectual debates or exchange. I think the world we're living in right now, unfortunately, is one in which nuances are being erased so fast. Oftentimes we have these polarized debates in which no one is listening to the other side, and that also is a very dangerous thing. A proper intellectual exchange, in my opinion, means I have my opinions, I have my thoughts, but I'm here to also listen to you. And if what you say makes sense to me, I am ready to revise, reconsider my own truths. So it means not to be absolutely sure of your own truths. And that is what we have lost today. We are very poor listeners. We don't listen to each other properly, and we have retreated into our own echo chambers in which everybody's hearing their echoes of their own voices, and that too is a dangerous environment. So how do we nurture proper conversation also between and among people who might be coming from different backgrounds, political opinions, and how do we treasure and protect and support democratic norms and democratic values? I think it is helpful and healthy to remember what the word meant. Instead of being too focused on today's extremely political and extremely divided and polarized debates, I want to focus on the word itself. And the word for me means someone who cares about other people's sorrows, someone who is not numb, someone who is not indifferent or desensitized or atomized. The philosopher, political thinker Hannah Arendt, she used to warn us about the dangers of becoming too atomized, like everyone retreating into their own cocoons. I think that is a very dangerous world. The moment I stop caring about what's going on in Afghanistan because it's miles away, the moment I stop caring about the war in Ukraine, the moment we start saying, well, it's not my story, so what do I care? That kind of numbness is a very dangerous thing. So woke for me is the antidote of that, actually. It means that you care, you're trying to understand, you're trying to connect, you're trying to engage, you're trying to go beyond the limits of the self that was drawn in front of you. And in that regard, I use the term woke in a positive way, the way it was meant to be used from the very beginning. Also, I want to add this, coming from a country that has a wounded democracy, being a storyteller from a wounded democracy, I'm also aware that democracy is a much more fragile and delicate ecosystem of checks and balances. I'm also aware of the fact that history does not necessarily always go forward in a linear, progressive arc. We wish it were like that, but not necessarily. In other words, what I'm trying to say is sometimes countries can go backwards. Sometimes generations can make almost exactly the same mistakes that their great-grandparents had already made. And when that happens, when countries lose their democracy, when countries break their democratic institutions and norms into pieces, when countries go backwards and tumble into ultranationalism, religious fundamentalism, or populist authoritarianism, I think the very first rights that will be taken away will be women's rights and minority rights. So it's very understandable that women and minorities are more alert and more awake and more aware and more conscious about the delicacy of this ecosystem that we call democracy. And that is why I do want to honor the term woke, and I will keep using it in a positive context.
Intersection with white nationalism and Christian nationalism. The concept of woke has also become intertwined with critiques of white nationalism and Christian nationalism. Many individuals who identify as woke are actively working to dismantle systems of oppression and challenge dominant narratives that perpetuate inequality. The term woke has evolved significantly over time, from its origins in African American vernacular English to its modern connotations of social awareness, spirituality, and critical thinking. While its meaning has expanded and its core essence remains the same, being aware of and actively working to address social injustices and promote equality. Let me play this clip.
The word woke has become a polarizing term in the culture wars in recent years.
But decades before Ron DeSantis declared a so-called war on woke, the term was used by some Black people as a signal and a warning to be on the lookout for violence and injustice. For more, we are joined by NBC News correspondent Tremaine Lee. Tremaine, it's always great to see you. Good morning.
Good to be here. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, woke for decades and decades has been used primarily in the Black community. But now it's become a word that means everything and nothing at all. It's loaded, it's charged, especially in the mouths of some far right-wing conservatives. So I went and investigated the true meaning and nature and history of this word. Check it out.
By now, you've probably heard it.
This woke ideology.
Weak and woke?
Wokeism. Over.
Woke lunacy.
And over.
Woke beliefs and policies.
And over again. Woke has become a charged political catch-all phrase, often used as a battering ram and a battle cry, and to many, a slur.
It's almost another way of saying Black. It's another way of saying the N-word.
They weaponized the civil rights movement and said it was a communist movement.
Before it was a pejorative, woke was about Black safety and empowerment. In the early 20th century, when Jim Crow had its grip on America, white supremacist danger and violence was a constant threat. So Black folks had to keep their eyes open, literally and figuratively. They had to stay woke. But what's the real actual definition of the term woke?
It's to be awake to what's happening around you, particularly when it comes to systemic injustice.
The roots of woke run deep to the heart of Black America's fight for equality. In the 1930s, bluesman Huddie Ledbetter, aka Leadbelly, penned a protest song in honor of the Scottsboro Boys, a group of Black teens falsely accused in Alabama of raping two white women.
Scottsboro Boys, they can tell you what it's all about. I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open.
And since then, it has become part of the cultural lexicon. And that's what it's always meant to Black people for almost 100 years now.
By the late 80s, woke was showing up in Black art, like Spike Lee's classic film, School Days.
Wake up!
And later, given new electricity by neo-soul artist Erykah Badu after the killings of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. And in 2020, woke crossed over from Black culture to the mainstream, following the murder of George Floyd.
No one was talking about woke as much as we have in the last 2 years, right? This was in speak in the Black community. I think there was a lot of terror in seeing what was happening in 2020, seeing the multi-racial, multi-ethnic coalitions of people who really rallied around understanding more about anti-Blackness, understanding more about systemic racism.
Today, woke has become an ideological lightning rod and dividing line, a warhead in the latest culture wars.
once it became like political football, particularly as we see with the GOP, it seemed like a mass message went out. Wokeness is what we're targeting.
They mean it as a slur, but the people who are for these policies, for these specific goals, who think that I want my children to learn about the history of this country and not just the white history of this country, that's not a slur to me. And if you call it woke or whatever you call it, I am proud of representing those things, and I want them in policy.
Politically, there's nothing new about fighting over the narrative. Who controls the narrative controls the story. But what's concerning for many people in this case with woke is that, one community created this as a form of resistance, and now it's been turned in some ways on that very community.
The MAGA agenda has attempted to redefine the word woke and link it to LGBTQ issues in a deliberate effort to create division and misinformation by trying to connect it with misgendering and sexuality itself, where it has nothing to do with gender or sexuality. It's the injustices of discriminating people for their physical appearance or beliefs. By doing so, they aim to keep their followers misinformed and oblivious to the realities of social injustice and inequality. Watch this clip.
How would you define wokeism?
Let me start here.
I'm not good at defining woke. Let him do that, but yeah.
Woke is accepting everything that is evil. So, for instance, Monster cans. Each line represents a 6. So you got 666. And then if you look on the Monster can itself, in the O of the Monster, it has a cross, and it's got represents the Antichrist. So when you drink it, you've got the cross coming down, and that's
so that's wokeism, yes, sort of in a nutshell.
Yes, in a nutshell, it's accepting everything that's evil as good.
Could you have another example of when you run into wokeism?
What they're doing with the schools,
like,
and the children, and trying to indoctrinate them. I have a granddaughter who's 6 years old, and
you have a granddaughter?
Yeah.
Wow, you look great for having a granddaughter.
Thank you.
Tell me then, so what kind of indoctrination? I'm asking you just for specific.
I like to graduate high school in Stevens Point. I mean, I have it on my phone. It's talking about gender issues and issues that shouldn't even be discussed in school, and pushing young children. If it were up to my granddaughter, she would be a dog, and they would be letting her crawl around on the floor and identify as a dog until 2 weeks from now. Then she'd be a cat, and they're letting children transition or telling them to keep it from their parents and pushing them to get gender reaffirming care and keep it a secret from their parents. That's not school.
And that's happening at school? There are cases specifically?
All over the United States. And we are fighting school boards left and right.
Wokeism, that's horrible. I mean, it's borderline mental issues, I guess, I would say. I mean, if you don't know what you are and you can't see what's going on right now in front of our eyes, it's something's definitely wrong with those individuals.
What is it about wokeism that upsets a lot of the people that would be on these panels today?
Well, like you just mentioned, it's the ever-changing thing of it. I mean, you're constantly walking on eggshells, and you have no idea if what I say today is going to be acceptable in 4 years. I don't think it's okay to be ridiculing and getting upset at people for something they said 8-10 years ago. And that's kind of the whole idea of cancel culture and the wokeness that it's been right now, is we're getting people in trouble for things that happened before these things were even wrong to do. So I don't know. I don't agree with that. That's what gets people.
How would you define woke?
Oh man. To me, woke is going out of your way to please everybody around you, and to accept any ideology that they feel is comfortable for them. And so I don't think that that's how we're supposed to live our lives. I think you should let people do what they want to do, but I shouldn't be forced to have to accept those things, and we should all be able to just live how we want to live. That's what I feel woke is.
Historically, woke originated in African American Vernacular English, AAVE, in the 1930s, referring to awareness of social injustices and racial disparities. Over time, its meaning expanded to encompass awareness of various social issues, including LGBTQ+ rights. However, the MAGA movement has distorted this term, associating it with LGBTQ issues and implying that woke means promoting a specific sexual or gender agenda. This misrepresentation is far from the truth. In reality, the MAGA movement's own track record on LGBTQ+ issues is concerning. For instance, Trump's administration rolled back protections for transgender students and workers and even attempted to redefine transgender out of existence altogether. Moreover, some MAGA supporters like Mike Johnson have advocated against basic legal protections for LGBTQ+ individuals, including marriage and adoption rights. By redefining woke and linking it to LGBTQ+ issues, the MAGA movement aims to create a false narrative that social justice and equality are somehow threatening or divisive. In reality, being woke means being aware of and working to address the systematic inequalities and injustices that affect marginalized communities, including LGBTQ+ individuals, which is now even spreading abroad through radicalization of right-wing politics. And unfortunately, even Elon Musk meddling in elections abroad has been reported recently. But watch this clip.
I am so tired of talking about woke culture because one of the tenets of wokeness is, of course, that your feelings matter more than the truth. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims. We are told that your generation cares more than any other about one issue in particular, and that issue is climate change. I will join you in worshipping at the feet of St. Greta of climate change. This country is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, which means that if Britain was to sink into the sea right now, it would make absolutely no difference to the issue of climate change. You know why? Because the future of the climate is going to be decided in Asia and in Latin America by poor people who couldn't give a shit about saving the planet. A third of all children who live in extreme poverty in the world live in India.
I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this journey. Your engagement and support mean everything to me. If you'd like to support our mission further, be sure to check out our upcoming merchandise, with proceeds going to institutions like the NCAA and ACLU. And as always, be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Stay woke.